Hello? Right, who works in Azure? Sorry, I'm kidding. I can't say anything bad about Azure. I never thought I'd give a talk at Azure. The people that actually know me were laughing at me because I put this talk in. There was a reason. That reason no longer comes up, so I should have changed the talk. My name's Paul Stack. I'm Stack72 on Twitter. I'm an engineer at Hashicorp. I work on Terraform for my sins. I work mostly in the providers, so I do a lot of work in AWS and unfortunately Azure. And I absolutely love infrastructure, which is why I took the job at Hashicorp. I enjoy building tools that allow us to be better infrastructure. So I have no more slides. This is all demo. Okay, slides are boring, I'm really sorry. Okay, so, has anyone used Terraform with Azure? Okay, its support was patchy. Okay, I have to admit it wasn't the best support in the world. Okay, we are getting much better. We support a lot more resources than we used to. And we have some more that is just about to be released, like we're going to support container service. The container repositories were released last time, and there's some data disks or virtual disks that are going to be created for the next release. I'm going to use a tool here called Goggling, which is a JetBrains IDE. It's a Go IDE, and it has a plugin called HCL. Okay? If you have used this plugin, it is amazing. It will give you autocomplete for Terraform, and it will make your life very simple. I promise you. I wrote this demo yesterday using this, and I was sat there going, this just makes it so simple. So we're going to go through this. Just to prove, there is nothing currently in my Azure account apart from many different resource groups, but there is nothing called Hug. Okay, so obviously I wanted to name something Hug because we're at the Hashicorp user group. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to declare the provider. Okay, you have to declare a provider at the top, just if you want to pass some variables in. Notice I'm not passing any secrets in here. I'm trying to use best practices. Trying, okay? One of the other engineers in Terraform is at the front, and he's probably sitting there going, it's not really a best practice, or he will tell me off for some things. Okay? Usually, you would do something that looks along the lines of provider Azure, and it would have something like client ID, and it would have client secrets, and it would have tenant ID, and it would have all these other different bits and pieces. Okay. If you're hard coding those in your Terraform files, if you learned one thing from tonight's talk, stop doing that. Okay, please. Okay. The amount of times I have gone to GitHub and found AWS access keys in people's GitHub is embarrassing. Okay. I have to admit, I've done it. I have checked my keys in for a previous company and it wasn't actually found for a year and a half. Okay. So if you learn anything, stop that tonight. Okay. So I'm going to reuse a variable here quite a lot, okay, because you have to pass location pretty much everywhere in Azure. Okay, so I usually declare a variable at the top. I have access to the UK South, which is the London data center. I didn't know this until yesterday, which means it's not very slow to create Azure resources for a change. And then the first thing that we have to do in Azure, everything is in a resource group. Okay. I'm not going to compare resource groups in Azure to what are potentially VPCs in Amazon. But if you think of it, everything gets wrapped in a resource group. Okay. In the same way as you would usually wrap everything in a VPC. But of course, they're not comparable. So the source of the module, by the way, all this code is in GitHub, and I'll send you the link. I'll show you the link at the end, okay? Feel free to take it. Don't use it in production, because it's probably pretty bad. But it'll give you a good starter in actually how you do this. So the demo is going to consist of 5 pieces of infrastructure. It's going to have a resource group. It's going to have networking, which has virtual networks, subnets, public IPs. It's going to have a storage account, storage containers. It's going to have a load balancer, which will be hooked up to the public IP. And lastly, it'll have a scale set. So scale sets are the equivalent of autoscale groups. Okay. And we're going to spin up 3 machines, and then we're going to trash some machines and actually watch them come back. I don't really know how long I have. We're going to go until everyone gets bored, or everyone sleeps, or beer runs out. So, the nice thing about this plugin is it's gone yellow. I don't know if you can see that, but it's telling me it's missing required properties. Okay? Now, usually, if you're missing required properties, you would have to go Terraform plan, and it would say it's missing properties. I just say Alt-Enter, and it's going to add in the name and the locations. So the name will be London Hug 2017, and the location is going to be var dot, oh look, autocomplete on my variables. I swear, this just makes my life simple. Okay, I don't even have to think. This is free. This is literally free. In fact, it'll cost you a little referral fee to me, $1, just $1 is all I ask. Okay? So we're going to do that, and we're going to go, and we're going to use the command. Firstly, we need to get the module. Terraform get. Okay? We need to go off, get the module source. Okay? The reason we have to run Terraform get is modules do not always have to be local. Okay? They can be stored in GitHub, they can be alternative Git repos, they can be S3 cars, whatever you want. Okay? Terraform will recognize all of these things and will go off and download the module source. Okay? I like to keep the modules that I'm using close to my code unless it's being reused across repositories. Okay? I don't like going off to GitHub and downloading it every time unless I really have to. But that has effectively created a symlink. Okay? In fact, I can show you that in the IDE, and you can see it's got a little arrow, which is just effectively a symlink to that location on disk. Okay? I can delete it, I can change the module, and it will always still be there. So let's go in Terraform plan. I'm actually using the brand new version on master, which is 0.9. If it crashes, I will probably raise a bug while I'm sitting here. So I'm going to apply that, and it should be pretty quick to apply. Let me drink some beer. And we should have a resource group. Let's go to the UI, let's refresh it. There we go, resource group succeeded. Anyway, boring. Let's go and do some interesting stuff. Okay. I have actually written all this code. Just to show you what's actually in the modules, okay? These are the most simple modules that you'll ever see, especially for resource group. Okay? I like to be a good developer sometimes, and I like to have an interface because I used to be a developer once upon a time, a reformed Microsoft developer, and I have an API that I like to write my modules against. Okay? And there are tools out there that you can actually run across your modules or across the different bits, and it will actually document your module code for you, and it will give you the full API. So if you include the description, it'll create that in the documentation for you. Can't remember the name of the tool, it will come back to me. And then some outputs off the back. And then look, the most simplistic module that there possibly is. Nice thing about this is I can actually, function, I can't remember, refactor, let's rename it, and we can say my location. So it's going to name this variable from location to my location. And it's also done it straight in the interface. Full refactor and support. This is amazing. Let's refactor that back because otherwise my code won't work. I just wanted to show that feature off, that's fine. Okay, so back to what we were doing. So the next thing is we're going to create some networking. Now, I can't spell, but that's okay. We don't mind that. And it's hug. I actually really can't spell, I'm really sorry. You will see many spelling mistakes from me this evening. So the next thing is, we're actually going to construct. So Terraform's obviously based on graph. Who doesn't know Terraform? Who's just here for the free beer and pizza? You're my favorite. You are literally my favorite person in the room. So Terraform's based on graph theory, okay? And Terraform will understand the order in which the operations have to be created, okay? There is currently an outstanding issue in Terraform that you can't depend between modules. You can't actually say this module depends on this module. So you can cheat your way around that by using interpolation. You can use outputs from one module as inputs to the other module. That's okay, that's not a problem. So what we're actually going to do is we're taking the output of the resource group, which is the name, and we're passing that into the networking module. Okay, so now Terraform understands that it actually has to create the resource group first, then it will create the networking stack after that. Okay, and we're going to give it an address space, and look, we're still giving a location, and lastly, we're going to give it a public IP. I don't know why that's public IP name, but that's okay. That's just my stupid naming convention. So, the networking stack is a little bit more involved. Okay, we still have an interface, but look, the interface is actually much more. It's got a lot more to it. Okay, so you've got five inputs, sorry, and you've actually got a number of outputs. So we can output the IDs of specific resources, and we can actually output the IP that we're going to get off the back of it. That hopefully, if this demo goes to plan, we're going to get an IP which relates to a load balancer, which won't actually show anything because I'm actually not putting any applications in the instances. But that's okay. You'll get the hint. Okay. We have a public IP address. We have some subnets, and we have some virtual networks. For anyone who's creating subnets, especially in AWS, actually on Azure, obviously, there is an interpolation function called CIDR subnet. Okay. I work in the code base, and I did not know about this interpolation until 3 months ago. Okay. So I used to hard code all this crap. Like I used to have, in my AWS config, I had 10.0.0.0/16, and then my subnets were like 10.0.1.0/24 or /21 or whatever. This works it out for you. I don't know how it does it, but it's good. Go and look at the code. It literally does work. It's awesome. Okay? So what we're going to do from here is we're going to create a public IP address, we're going to create a virtual network, and we're going to create some subnets. Okay? And of course, the order in which things happen, Terraform understands what it's doing. So again, we have to go and use the command terraform get, which goes off and gets the networking module right now, which is perfect. And then we're going to terraform planet. I haven't had it. What? Let's just skip that crap. Oh, I see what I've done. Okay. That's just going to be called test. Because why not? Excellent, now it works. See? Testing. If only there was testing tools available for this. I was going to say. Like, seriously. So it's going off, it's refreshing everything, and it's actually going to create 4 more resources. Okay? It's going to create the public IP address. It's going to create the networking stack, which will have a virtual network and a public subnet and a private subnet. Okay. Obviously, this is not best practice. You would have multiple private subnets, you would have multiple public subnets, and you would do different things. This is just purely demo code. Okay. Please, 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 for the love of God, do not run this in production. Okay. Actually, you know what? It probably does work, and I'm not going to say any more about that. I was going to say something bad about the tool that I'm using, but not Terraform, the other tool. But I think that's probably best I don't. So let's Terraform apply that, and we're going to go and watch what it does. So it's a little slow. I don't know if you know what it's doing under the hood. It's actually doing absolutely tons of calls. But if you did this in the Azure portal, one of the people I work with, who shall remain nameless, actually ran charge proxy across what the Azure portal was doing when he was creating some of this code, and it ran somewhere in the region of 2,500 API calls. Okay. It's very, very, very chatty. Very, very, very chatty. Okay. So Terraform's abstracted all that away for you, which is a good thing. So there we go. So we've added some 4 resources. See, it actually makes it look really fast when you're using it against London. Okay, it's almost as though we're in London. So we're going to refresh it, and here we have a virtual network, and our virtual network has some subnets, which is a public and private, and we have some address ranges and some IP address, and a number of IPs available. And if I go back, And we have a public IP address, which has a specific IP. Great. So let's try and do the next part. So storage accounts are tricky buggers. Once you create a storage account and delete it, there is some eventual consistency going on there. A lot of eventual consistency going on in there, and sometimes up to 24 hours you can't create the same storage account name. Okay. It's globally unique in the same way as an S3 bucket is in Amazon. Okay? But that's okay, it's because you get a specific URL that goes with it. The trouble is that if you hard code some of your tests, then you get real problems. So this is the 15th time I've run this demo in the last 2 days. And I literally went London Hug SA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now, because I wanted to keep the main name available for tonight, I thought I'll just remove the number.
We used to use random ID, so randomise that name. So
Random ID. That's not one of my favourite functions.
Really well.
It does work really well, I agree with you there. I have to say, I do agree with you. What happens if you run it the second time? Because random ID will randomly reseed.
No, only if you destroy it and then.
Okay.
So if you just run another reply, then it will stay safe.
Perfect. So again, we're sharing the resource group name. Okay. So we're actually passing the resource group name, which comes out back into the storage module, because we have to obviously create a storage account that sits in that resource group. We have our storage account name, we have the location, we have our account type, and then we have some container access types. Okay. For those who have been using Terraform for a while, I don't know if you remember life before passing lists. It really sucked, like in a big way. What I would have to do right there is I would actually have to concatenate the string, pass it in as a string, and then inside the module actually split it. Okay, so this is like, honestly, this is probably one of my favorite features that's gone into Terraform 07, and that's quite a while ago now. So inside the compute module, or inside the storage module, look, I'm like a real developer. I have like this all well documented and everything. So we have lots of things going in, and then we have some things coming out. Okay, ignore this index 0. Okay, I didn't want to pass the whole thing back out and then select it, so I just chose 1, literally, because I'm only passing 1 in. I only want 1 out. Another reason why this is not production ready code. We have an account. And we have some containers. Okay. Container, obviously, we can use the count function because we're passing a list in. We want to create the number of containers based, on the number of items in the list, and then we actually want to create the name based on the name and the position in the list that we're passing in. So if we passed in VHDs and then we passed in another item, we want them to loop around and actually get each one out. Okay, this is just a nice way of doing it. Is there a better way? Is elements still the right way to do this? YOLO. So I'm just going to show off one more feature of this IDE. Okay, I swear I love this plugin. Has just made life much simpler for me. Okay. If for any reason, let's just comment that out. And we're going to go container access type equals $var.x. It's gone red because x doesn't exist. Okay, if I go to the interface and I create a variable of x, which will have a type, actually, let's see if there's autocomplete on this. Nope. I need to raise a bug. So x is a string, and if I actually go back to the container, x now changes to purple. Okay. This is like, seriously, if you haven't, like this works for IntelliJ, PHP, Storm, WebStorm, all of the JetBrains tools. Okay. These are all free, so I'm just installing this. Anyway, enough plugging. I don't work for that company. Okay, so we need to go back and we need to run Terraform get. We need to get the new module, and we need to Terraform plan again. Crap. See, this is what happens when I change code live. Like, seriously, this shouldn't, yeah, let's just remove that and pretend that that didn't happen. Because of the fact that this is assembling, okay, I don't actually have to run Terraform get again. If this was a GitHub repo or an S3 bucket, I would actually have to run Terraform get to get the latest back down. Okay, so we can Terraform planet, and we're going to get 2 things, maybe. It's doing a lot of refreshing. There we go, 2 things, excellent. So we're going to Terraform apply that, and then we can go back to the portal, and we can see what's going on. Anybody any questions so far? No? Is this actually going to like help anybody? Or are you all still here just for the free beer? Cheapskates. Okay, so let's see how it's doing. Excellent, it's creating a storage account. This takes a little bit of time. I think it's like nearly 60 seconds, something like that. It might be a little bit faster as it's in London. But if I go and refresh it, excellent, we have a storage account. And the storage account should have some containers. Oh, it's still creating. Great. Come on.
How do you manage your creds?
How do you manage your creds? Who said that? I use environment variables. Okay. There is no such thing in Azure as the ability to do something like AWS profile. There is actually a package for Mac called envchain, which is awesome. So envchain actually stores all your variables in the OSX keychain, and then you can run the command envchain and then the name of the envchain that you get out, put it into your SSH section or into your SSH session, and it will remember them. And as soon as you kill the session, they're gone. Okay, it's a really cool tool. Go and check it out. It's awesome. Excuse me?
If there's some batshit reason you're running Windows, you can just already be logged in, right?
If there's some batshit reason you're running Windows, I literally want to hug you right now. Like, honestly.
Azure and stay logged into Azure.
Yes, it's the same as if you're using the Azure CLI. Okay, you have to run the command Azure login. It will give you a URL on a token, and you go and you actually have to create the OAuth authentication between them. Okay, this is really cool. Go and check this little tool out. I use it for pretty much everything. Okay, it's I tend to not use like ZSH or Bash profiles. I usually store everything in envchain, because the nice thing is with OSX keychain, you can sync it using iCloud across your different machines. Lazy, lazy. So we have 2 resources, and if I go back, I refresh. Maybe, hopefully. Does anybody use the portal?
Try not to.
Does anybody like the portal?
Don't like Azure.
Okay.
I think it's better than AWS.
Really? Get out. Like, seriously.
No, that's the whole cloud platform awful, but it's actually quite nice.
Wow. I literally don't think I've ever heard those words come out of someone's mouth. Oh, there we go. So we'll talk about this after, I promise you. We definitely need to talk about that after. Okay. So we have a container, and the container has a URL, and so on and so forth. Excellent, no problem. So what are we going to do after this? It's almost as though I really all wrote this code. I'm like prepared for demos these days. This is not me. Hub networking, public IP, what? What? Oh yeah, thanks. A glorious assistant I have here. Public IP ID. See, this is what happens when you spell things wrong. Okay, so we're going to create a load balancer. Shh, didn't happen. So, load balancers is my fault in Azure. I actually implemented this resource in 0.8. Okay. If I was going to re-implement it, it would be done in a completely different way. Like, completely different way. So the rationale behind the load balancer is that if you actually look at the schema for a load balancer, it's nested JSON that references other parts of the same JSON. It took me a while to get that as well. literally. Okay. So I had this huge JSON spec that I had to try and implement and try and change this into a Terraform provider. And we were like, there's no way that we can actually do nested resources talking to other parts of the same resource. It just doesn't make sense. So we looked at the Azure CLI, and we noticed that Azure had actually implemented this as different resources. We were like, how are they doing that? So we used charge proxy in order to reverse engineer it. And we actually saw that it was the same request that was being done again, passing the E tag and just running updates. So that's what we did. And it works. It's probably not the most successful implementation, but it does work, and it builds load balancers. That's as much as I can say about it. The load balancing is a little bit tricky. Okay, so if anybody knows about load balancers in Azure, you have to create the load balancer, you create a front-end IP configuration, you create back-end address pools, which actually is where the machines talk to, then you have NAT rules, then you have probes, and different things. Okay, I don't have
Sorry, are the probes health checks?
Probes are health checks, thank you, yes. There are no probes in this because there is no application, there is no health to check. Okay? But it's okay. You can go to the Terraform IO site and you can look at the code for that and it will help you. There are no NAT rules because there is no ports to ingress to. Okay? But we do have an IP, front-end IP configuration, which we associate to the public IP address, and we do have back-end address pool IDs, which actually where the machines go in. Okay? So this is the equivalent of I must stop comparing AWS and this, okay? This is the equivalent of, actually I'm not going to do that, it's fine. I'll get in trouble again. So we have a load balancer name, we have more variables that are being passed in, we have an IP address configuration, but the nice thing is we can still do outputs, okay? I don't know how people like to do their outputs in this room. I have read many different things where people will literally output every single parameter that is available from a resource. Okay? That just confuses me. I like to only output the things that I care about. Okay? That is my opinion only. If you're doing a different way, that works for you, then that's a good thing. Okay? For me, I don't want to complicate things, and Azure has many different outputs, especially when it comes to load balancers, and I do not want like a page of outputs, because I'll just have to scroll through them, and I'll have to write documentation for every one of them. So we have a load balancer, which has a front-end IP configuration, which has a name, it has a public IP address ID, and it has an IP address allocation, and then it has a back-end address pool. Okay. As I said, this is how you hook the instances up to a load balancer. When I started creating this resource, I didn't know what back-end address pools were. And I created a front-end IP configuration on my load balancer, and I created some machines, and I was like, why are the machines not in the load balancer? It doesn't make sense. That's the reason why. You need this. You need this. You need the machines to talk to it. Okay? And I don't know why that's gone yellow, and that worries me. That really worries me. Oh, location. That's fine. Oh, it's not required anymore. That's a bug in the IDE. Go away. So as of this morning, literally this morning, we removed location from all of the Azure resources except the top level because it wasn't being used. So you were actually passing location into all the nested resources.
But you said sort of because you've already got a location for the resource.
I didn't think of that. So that's the reason why. So we've deprecated it because you can't remove it. Actually, you know what, let's just put it in because it'll complain otherwise. var.location, excellent. Let's just line things up. People like things being lined up, I don't. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, I'm going to say Terraform plan. I bet you this fails because of the fact I'm passing location in. In fact, I'll guarantee it. Actually, let's get the module first. And then we'll Terraform plan it. I knew that was going to happen. Just this morning. Literally, I did a fresh build this afternoon on 09 on master, and that's what happened. So we're going to apply that. That's really upsetting. Okay, so we're going to go back to the resource group, and we're going to refresh it. We now have a load balancer, which is excellent. And look, the load balancer is hooked up to the IP address. Okay, fantastic. We can actually like CNAME it or add an A record or whatever you want to do. It's up to you. We have a front end IP pool. Okay, which is this is what actually hooks up to the public IP. And we have, if you had rules, you would put the rules in here, which is your load balancer rules or whatever, your health probes. And we have a backend pool. And the backend address pool has got nothing in it because there are no machines. Okay? Now if you want to go and do this via the portal, I'll show you how lovely it is. So we're going to choose an availability set, and we're going to say none. Yeah, I'm bored of that already. Okay, so let's go back to Terraform. It's much better to do this in Terraform. Oh, but look, the nice thing is we actually get the public IP address. Anybody not use outputs? Anybody use outputs in their Terraform code? Okay. Outputs for me are the most useful thing as an operator. Okay. I like to put meaningful pieces of information. Okay. I would love, I'm going to challenge you to do this actually. I would love to add like some information as part of my output, like a description of what it is or something, bits and pieces like that. There was some code merged in 08 by Martin in order to do that, but it actually hasn't been hooked up to the CLI yet. We should have a call on that tomorrow. This would be really good. Actually, no, I'm not playing. Let's do it when I'm drunk. It's much more fun. It's much more fun to do that. Okay, so last thing is scale sets. Well, scale sets are amazing. If you are using single machines in Azure, you have to use availability sets. Availability sets give you the ability to have fault domains and upgrade domains. Okay? There is a massive white paper on why they have fault domains and upgrade domains. It's actually extremely interesting. It's very sleepy, but it's extremely interesting. And it basically allows you to it effectively allows you to, for Azure to be able to move your machine around in order to like upgrade what's happening in their environment. Okay. I don't know why you would have to specify that. That to me should be something that's internal in Azure, but that's my personal thought process. And the main thing is that it has that ability. Only recently have they given you the ability to add 3 fault domains. Okay, it used to only be 2, and if you were running 3 machines, you were in trouble. So we're going to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a scale set in the resource group, in that location. It's going to have 3 machines. It's going to be a standard A0 because I'm a cheapskate. This is a Hashicorp account, and it's our Terraform acceptance testing account, and I don't want to waste our credit. This is the only place in which I have hard-coded a secret. Okay, please, Jesus Lord, don't hard-code your secrets. Like honestly, a better way to do this would be to use an environment variable again, or actually prompt the user to type it in at like the command line or something like that. It's a super secret password, so don't steal it. This is like used in production, probably in some places. I'm not even kidding. Okay. And it's got a really hard.
Will there be an integration with Vault to pull secrets from Vault in your code?
Good question. Is there an integration? Jesus. Everybody asks me this, and I cringe when people ask me that. The answer so far is no. Okay, so the question is, if nobody heard it, is there a chance that there will be an integration between Terraform and Vault in order to pull secrets from Vault? Okay. There are a number of issues. Okay. The first issue is that, regardless of whether it's stored in Vault or not, would actually be stored in plain text in the state file. So there's no point in pulling it from Vault. An environment variable would probably be better, in my opinion. Okay?
So is there going to be any way to kind of secret or sensitize Terraform state?
Let's have a look at what the code does. Scale set. OS profile secrets. Yeah, so that should probably change to sensitive. True. I'll send a pull request as soon as this is over. Yes, and if that's sensitive true, it won't store it in the state file, and then at that point we're actually good. I must remember to send that pull request actually. See, I wrote this, I would change it, I would like 100% change it. Okay. What you would normally do here is you would say something along the lines of var.password, and we would say variable password, and then in command line you would actually pass in tf_password equals, and then that would actually read it from command line rather than actually hard coding it. Okay. We're not going to do that because that would be work, and then I don't know if my demo would work, so we're just going to pretend that that's not really a secret. Okay. So the last thing is we actually need to tell Azure where to store the hard drives. And this is why you need a storage account. When you spin machines up, you need a storage account so that Azure actually knows where to store the blob for the hard drive, or where to attach other hard drives from. This blew me away. I didn't realize that you ever needed this. And I swear to God, it took me like 6 weeks just to understand why I needed a storage account in order to spin up a machine. We need a private subnet. Don't put your machines in a public subnet unless they actually have to be publicly available, because that's just not a good thing to do. Like, really. I have many talks in like building scalable infrastructure in the cloud, like best practices. And the number one thing that I always tell people is you have to segment your systems properly. So if you have a load balancer that needs to be public, put that in your public subnet. Put everything else in your private subnet. Okay? And then create the security group that allows them to talk. It's much better to do that than it is just to throw machines available to the public. You don't want everybody being able to hit your machine directly. That's pointless. Rant over. And lastly, we want to spin up some machines. We're going to spin up some Ubuntu 16.04 machines just because why not? You could spin up Windows machines, but we don't have all night. That's not a Microsoft joke. That is actually, it just takes 20 minutes to boot a Windows machine. That's all it is. Like, Ubuntu boots much faster, so that's not a jibe of Microsoft. Sorry. I'm going to get in so much trouble. Like, seriously. Okay, so we're going to terraform get, and we're going to terraform plan. This should only create one thing. Jesus Christ, that warning is really annoying. Okay, so we're only going to create one thing, which would just be a scale set. I think it takes in the region of about 4 minutes or 5 minutes in order to spin up all 3 machines in a scale set. So we're going to kick that off. Terraform apply. It is upsetting me. Does anybody have any questions while this is running? Nobody.
Like the other Hashicorp guy who spoke at the last one, who was talking about how like you learned a lot from using like Hashicorp tools to like power like Atlas and all that kind of stuff. But it sounds like do you have like a lot of opportunity to like try your Azure integrations like for real world stuff, or is it mostly like you like getting feedback from people that things could be better in a certain way?
Good question. So the question I think is, do we actually use this in a real world scenario, or is this like for testing only and for bug fixing?
Yeah, well,
Bug fixing. Okay. All of the Hashicorp stack right now runs on AWS. Okay. Not all of it, I take that back. Some of it runs on packet.net, okay, because we have some bare metal stuff that we need to spin up. But you have to remember that this is version 2 of an Azure API. Okay? Does anybody remember the classic portal? Yeah. So that's based on what's called ASM. Okay, that's their previous API. This new provider, and that is a provider in Terraform, and it's just called Azure, okay, and it's still there. I don't even know if it works, to be totally honest with you.
It does work.
It does. You're probably the first person that I've ever actually met that has configured it. Just because of the fact that that certificate is really tough to create, right? It's really, really painful to create. Sorry?
I did not know.
Okay. So for my sins, I started working on the Azure provider, the ARM, Azure RM provider, last January, and it was because of some partner stuff that they announced like later. And we created like basic integration. There's a lot that you can't do in the new portal that you still have to go to the old portal for. And there is no real migration strategy between ASM and ARM. Actually, I take that back, there's a PowerShell script.
You get to see things called classic in the new portal.
You do get to see things called classic in the new portal. So when this was created, Hashicorp infrastructure was already up and running. Okay. I actually sent this repository just yesterday to our solution engineers who go to customers, and they were like, oh cool, we can demo Azure now. Just because of the fact that it's not as popular a cloud as AWS right now. Okay, it's growing in popularity and it has a lot of selling points, it really does. I used to be of the opinion, I don't know how to say this in the right way without being ranty, okay? I used to believe that anybody who wasn't using AWS was not making the right choices in their cloud. Okay. But at the same time, I now realize that different cloud providers offer different things. Okay, so for example, in my opinion, Azure is very good for platform as a service. Okay, web apps in Azure are really simple, really easy, and really effective. Okay? Beanstalk in AWS sucks, and that is their platform as a service. Okay? So if I was going to use platform as a service, I would actually use Azure. Okay? If I was going to use a container-based system, I would probably use Google, okay? Because their container-based stuff is kick-ass. So different clouds have different benefits, and there's probably a chance that in the future there'll be some of our infrastructure will run in Azure, maybe. You'll have to rip it from my cold dead hands. But at that point, we will actually beef up the provider. Now, for anybody who's paying attention to the Terraform repo, there is a lot of commits around Azure recently, like a lot. So we've added event hubs, we've added all the container stuff. Web apps are actually in progress, which is really good. There's a whole load of stuff. Virtual networks, virtual gateways, all of this is all coming. And it's all open source. The nice thing is that the Azure RM provider is actually a Hashicorp core provider. So it is 100% supported. If bugs do come in, then we will fix them eventually. I mean that in the fact that you've seen our repository, we have 1,500 open issues in the repository, okay? There's only 6 people in the team? 7 now? Something, 6, maybe 7. And we are like swamped. There's so much work going on in our team, it's crazy. So we will fix bugs, and they'll prioritize the basis of crashes are always fixed like they're the highest priority. New features are probably like less, unless it's like a killer feature that we need. Okay, so for example, I started work today on AWS Elastic Volumes, because that is going to make my life easier. So I wanted to work on that. So we have a scale set up, and it took 4 minutes, which was much better. I could rant about this stuff all day, by the way. And I promise you I haven't had enough beer for that. We're going to go back to, scale sets. Let's refresh. So we have a scale set. And if it refreshes on the left, this is a new feature of the portal that was released just last week. You can actually see the instances in a scale set. When I gave this demo before, I had to use the Azure CLI in order to see what instances were in my scale set. Okay, so this is awesome. And I can go, and we can see that there are 3 instances, and we can actually have a look at each instance, maybe, or maybe not. Thanks a lot, portal. Yeah, so we have 3 instances there. We can go back to the load balancer, and we go to the backend pool, and we can actually see that there are 3 instances in the backend pool. So we've actually hooked up the whole way through. If there was an application, if I wasn't too lazy, I could have baked an application into an AMI, or not an AMI, an Azure machine image. And I'm using Packer, and I could actually create like a Hello World application with a plugin. I was told I only had 30 minutes, or 40 minutes. I'm actually on 40 minutes right now. So I can pretty much stop and stop boring everyone. But the nice thing is that we have a scale set. And if we go to our instances, and we kill an instance, let's see what happens. It may work, it may not. It's hopefully going to do something. Maybe. What's it doing? What are you doing? Instances. Like seriously. Just stop the image. Oh, you have to deallocate, of course. Oh, no, that doesn't work either. When in doubt, refresh the page. Come on. Instances. Oh, good, it's deleting. Okay, and eventually it will create a new instance. Okay, it has to go off to the storage account, it has to delete the blob. I could keep adding more and more and more code into this. I really could. Like, you could do data source lookups against machine images and stuff like that. But to show in 30 minutes, as well as ranting and like hopefully making some people laugh, to show that you can actually create an entire end-to-end application in Azure, people were joking with me going, don't make Azure look usable. It is actually extremely usable, honestly. And this is actually the first time that I've stress tested our own tool against Azure. So this was a real good learning opportunity for me as well, on the tool that I write. But I would definitely suggest that if you're like in a Microsoft shop or something like that and you get some free credit with Azure, go and check out the Azure provider. Okay, raise bugs, raise feature requests. Okay, there is a level of parity that we need to get to with new features. Okay, and we do want to get there, we really do. We definitely want to make all of our main providers better. By main providers, I mean Google, Amazon, and Azure. Okay. We're not going to forget about the others, don't get me wrong. It's just those are our main 3 providers right now. Actually, there's another couple: Console, Nomad, Atlas, Vault, etc. But the main 3 clouds is we want feedback on these tools. We really do. We desperately, desperately want feedback. If there are bugs, or if there are missing features, or there's something that's not usable, or the interface, or the UX isn't correct on the tool, send us a message. Okay, go to the GitHub repository and open an issue, and we will look at it at some point. I promise. You can see the instances still deleting. I don't even know how long that's going to take to delete. So we're going to pretend that that's okay. I can go and change some of the code around and make it work and change different instances and stuff like that. We're not going to do that. You all know Terraform. You can go and have a look. But one thing that I will show, for those who don't know, Terraform Graph is probably one of the most useful functions that in the whole system. Okay, it is obviously it's based in graph theory, and you want to understand the order of operations and things. Okay, if you run the command Terraform Graph, you just get that. That's not really readable. Okay, I like to format my graph so that I can actually look at pretty pictures, and then I can color in the crayons. But we're going to say Terraform Graph, and we're going to pipe it through dot and save it as a PDF. Okay, because once upon a time when I actually did manage some infrastructure, I wanted to see how an infrastructure, a network stack, or a topology looked before changes were made to it. So every time a pull request was sent, this was like before I joined the team, I worked in a startup, but we had this. Every time a pull request was sent, a graph was attached to the pull request to show what it was like before and what it was like after. Okay. It's really useful. Artifacts are very, very, very good. So we're going to save it. We're going to open the graph. And we can actually see the order of operations. Okay, so you have everything as a provider. Then at that point, you can create a storage account at the same time. Resource group has to happen before everything else, and so on and so forth. The further down, the more important. That's where it starts. The top is the pieces that have least dependencies. That is the last created. Terraform is all run in parallel. It will work out the level of parallelism. Try and say that with an Irish accent after a couple of beers. It will try and work out the level of parallelism in order to understand what it can create at the same time. Okay? Use the graph in order to understand the order of operations. The fact that you're passing interpolations between modules means that you're helping shape the graph. You're actually helping Terraform understand the order in which things need to happen. Now, I'm under strict instructions to tell you that there is an upcoming webinar. This is the only reason I have slides, by the way. I'm not even joking. I got an email today from our lovely marketing people, and they were like, please plug the webinar, please plug the webinar. On the 1st of March, I think it's at 10 a.m. Pacific, there's a webinar, joint webinar between Hashicorp and Microsoft showing how to deploy Azure, okay, using Terraform. Okay. This is the reason why I created this code, because I was supposed to give that webinar. I don't have to anymore, yay, because it's my birthday. So, if you're interested in more and actually understand the Microsoft standpoint on this and how Microsoft are using this or taking advantage of this, the link will be tweeted out by the Hashicorp Twitter account very soon, like in the next day or two, I believe. I did have the link on there until like 5 minutes before my talk, and Cameron says take the link off. If anybody has any questions, please shout now. Otherwise, all the code is on my GitHub. Go, it has a license. That license basically means I take no responsibility for what you've done. But please go and have a play. If there are issues with the code, or if you think anything that needs to change, please go to the Terraform issue list. Please raise issues, or go to the mailing list and talk about it there, because we do want to make this provider better as well as all of our other providers. Anybody any questions? Last questions.
Chance you'll expand on the ARM provider?
Any chance we'll expand on the ARM provider?
Because at the moment, this deployment in V2 for Azure is all about ARM templates, and your ARM template provider doesn't actually work. So I was hoping that it would be, instead of it just being an ARM template provider, that you'd actually create the actual resources rather than have a resource maybe for each one, rather than just...
Let's talk about that after. Okay, I'm responsible for that, and I'm responsible for why that doesn't work. And there is an issue that's been growing further and further and further down my to-do list in order to fix, and I keep finding things that I like doing better. I'm not lying to you, I'm being like 100% honest. There's a specific bug that I need to fix that I have no
If it makes you feel any
clue
better,
how.
I raised the bug with Microsoft for deleting resources in our templates, and they have a bug with it too.
Yes. Yes, that's okay. That makes me feel better. That does actually. We can talk about that after. Anybody else? You're all dismissed. Thank you all very much. Bye.